Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Okay, this is the greatest tie-in promo I have ever heard of in my life.
Okay.
Baskin Robbins created an ice cream flavor to help promote the film.
Oh my.
Can't stop the nuts.
Yeah, that is by far.
The greatest thing ever.
And again, do they get it?
They must.
Kidding. That
So
makes
the yeah, the bio of the film, the plot summary says Ron suggests a new location for rehearsal space at the YMCA. Parenthetically, the ensuing production number features its athletic denizens in various states of undress, which
see
is the nicest way possible to say that.
that there's a lot of naked boys in the shower.
Right. And so
Alert.
is it the cowboy or the leather guy who is the one who's like kind of controlling the village people name now?
I think it, or is it the policeman?
Hold up, just doing some more research here. Our friend Felipe has been in, up until recently, every single iteration of the band. So since 2023, yeah, all right, so Victor Willis is the sort of the, now, I guess he owns the rights to the name, the characters. So he started it from 1978 until 1972. Willis was married to Felicia Ayers Allen, now Felicia Rashad.
I was gonna say, is that Felicia Rashad?
It sure is.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but Victor is the one who, he like we said, owns the rights to the kind of name and the songs, and is really running the group like he wants it, which is not how a bunch of the other members of the group like it,
Right,
not a political show.
right.
So it's interesting. Wikipedia, again, because this program is nothing but me reading articles off of Wikipedia.
Really, really go to deep sources.
Yes, we're deep diving. It lists the original seven members as so Peter Whitehead, parentheses, nondescript. David Forrest was the cowboy. Mark Musler was the construction worker. Lee Moulton was the biker. Alex Briley was the GI slash nondescript. Felipe Rose, American Indian. Victor Willis, he's the top of the list. Here's what his character is described as: cop slash admiral slash athlete slash gigolo slash nondescript.
Wow.
Yeah. And then as you kind of, as the years go by, he very quickly just switches to cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or admiral, I guess is the other one. All right. Well, we have learned so much about the village people and Can't Stop the Music in such a short
Also,
span of time.
we have, but that makes it so clear, though, all of your description of him having the multiple personas, because often, like, I'm like, but wasn't there a, that's why.
Hmm.
You try to remember what everybody was. You go, wait, wasn't there a construction worker? And wasn't
Right.
there like a sailor at some point? Or was that just all of them in the Navy?
Yes. Okay. So quickly here, here's what we need to do. We need to set up a screening of this film
Mhm.
and serve ice cream.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
You know, a lot of times people besmirch AI as like the end of everything and all information and everything else.
Mhm.
However, since we were discussing the Swedish Chef restaurant
Yes.
at the Disney Studios, food, is that right? I think
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So I was like, you said, what's the name of the chicken that's always in the kitchen with them? So I typed into Google Swedish Chef chicken, which I can't wait to see the emails this sends me
Oh
now.
yeah, it's gonna be great.
then it gives you the like other questions people have asked.
Hmm.
Who was Gonzo's chicken's girlfriend's name? Why is he called the Swedish Chef? Which is a
That's a terrible question.
yeah. Um, yeah, this is the one. Okay, the two I love. So this is the one, two, three, the fourth question that AI is like, this is what people are asking.
Mhm.
Is the Swedish chef married?
Oh,
Yeah, ladies. Unfortunately, he's taken. They say, well, AI, a computer, spent time learning this. While never explicitly confirmed, it is strongly implied that the Swedish chef is married. He has been frequently depicted wearing a wedding ring on his left hand in various appearances, including the 2014 film Muppets Most Wanted and other merchandise.
wow.
Yeah. And he's been wearing a wedding ring since 2006, which again, AI says, making him one of the few Muppets to openly wear one.
I mean, this is true.
Yeah. And then
It
uh,
often goes to hedonism.
it doesn't mention that, but then in proof that stupid people also have access to the internet, why does the Swedish chef talk like that?
Really?
Yep. The Swedish chef speaks in a mock Swedish accent, which parodies the characteristic sounds of Scandinavian languages and occasionally includes an English word to help the viewer understand what he's attempting to do on screen.
Oh,
But oh my God. Okay, road trip.
okay.
Wait, okay. The Smithsonian Institution at the American History Museum has a Swedish chef puppet.
I think I knew that.
Currently not on view. Usage conditions apply. Okay. Oh, we have to, for using the media. How much do we have to donate so we can use it? I guess one of the interesting things is you did not start off your life as a writer, or have you always been writing? You just
No,
didn't publish it.
no, this was sort of probably the product of an early midlife crisis. So when I was 14 and 17, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I am a lawyer. But about 10 years into practicing law, I decided, got to be more than this. And so I decided to try and do several different things. I decided I wanted to try and teach some, which I did for a couple of years at the local community college, and that was enough to cure me of wanting to do that. Uh, and then, in a fit of insanity, I ran for public office, and I was elected, and I served for 10 years, and that was glad I did it and glad it's over. And then I had this naive assumption I could just sit down and write a book and somebody would want it. And so I was very fortunate, and actually somebody did want it, and that sort of started me on it.
And what number book is this for you now?
This is number three that I've had published. So and it's taken me a long time in between them, but I've had a few other things going on. So it's all been, I tend to write, and I started writing when I first started. My kids were really small, and the only time I had to do it was early in the morning. And I could just do it for a limited period of time. Then, I'm on to the day, and it's chaos all day, and I'm so exhausted at night I can't do anything. But I discovered that sort of worked well for me, and I still do it just a little bit at a time. I write every day, pretty much, including this morning. I wrote some, and so it seems to work. And it's amazing if you do something every day, in a year or two, how much you can get done. So that's been sort of my story with it.
Well, and this book has already won major awards. It's had hugely wonderful, even at the front of the book, there's amazing commentary. It's a really compelling story. And did you, when you started off, I mean, obviously everybody wants to be successful at what they try, but did you think that, and the gendarme was successful? I mean, you've done very well as a just few books in. Or do you now consider yourself a lawyer or a author who is
Or
also a
failed teacher?
failed teacher?
Yeah.
Probably the failed
Well,
teacher.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to be a retired lawyer before too long. I've been
Right.
doing this a long time, but No, I've been fortunate to have had a chance to do a number of different things. And so, people ask me sometimes, well, how do you do all this? And sometimes I respond, well, I'm not sure I'm doing any of it well. But my law partners have been very gracious with me and allowing me to do, to run for office and serve and still practice law. And I've been able to write books and still practice law. And then I'm the founder of this literary festival and music festival, and I'm still practicing law. So it's I don't know. I definitely consider myself a writer. I'm giving the keynote speech tonight to the Florida Book Awards banquet, which is
Hey.
if you're familiar with them, it's a lot of states have, the South Carolina Book Award, or then Michigan has one, Florida has had one for a number of years. And I won the gold award with the gendarme when it was published. And so I'm preparing my speech for tonight, and I assumed the guy that asked me to do this knew that I was a candidate for the award, So there's some small part of me that I'm not proud of, is thinking, well, maybe the fix is in, and I'll be like, yeah, Sergeant Schultz on Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing. I know nothing.
Mhm.
But but unfortunately for me, the fix was not in, and I did not
Oh,
win this year. But I'm going to work this into my speech tonight, so I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
no, gracious losers. People love that.
Yes,
Exactly.
always.
So this book, it's interesting. It's set in the South, and the tale seems like a very Southern Gothic kind of like maybe Flannery O'Connor a little bit is in there. But there's a lot of this idea of othering and separating people and kind of not always making the most or the appreciating the differences of others. Was that something that you kind of started this book with the outset of like, this is what I want to write about, this idea of acceptance and whether or not people have it? Did you start with that theme or how did this come about?
Yeah, that's part of it. Well, first, we're really good at that in the South, and sort of that,
Well, do what
as
you're good
are a
at.
lot of other places too. But no, that was a large part of it. I had this idea about this boy that has these weird things on his back that eventually become sort of like wings. And I wanted to sort of touch on issues of race and religion, and which are also obviously big Southern topics, and but also just the whole thing about what it means to be different. And people have asked me legitimately, so well, Mark, right, let me get this straight. Here you are, a white man born in this country in this time period, to parents who loved you and paid for your education. What do you know about being different? And so I tried to reach the point that I think everybody knows at some level of being on the outside of something and looking in and just what it feels like. And I'd done a lot of research on sideshows and freak shows and sort of, which is very interesting. And I'm not quite, people keep asking me, well, why is it so interesting? I'm like, well, I don't really know. Uh, Maybe it was from, attending the North Florida Fair as a child where they have, the big garish signs, world's smallest horse, or, see the wild man from Borneo and that sort of thing. And so, but and there are documentaries about human oddities, and there's a very famous movie called Freaks that came out of the 30s that was sort of, pre-Wizard of Oz level, but had a lot of, it was all the story of sort of this, sideshow with these various human oddities that sort of take it over because the guy that's running it is not a good person. And so I sort of worked, all that, sort of factored into it. And I had tried to find, a lot of these shows and circuses in general wintered in Florida. And so there are whole, communities and museums down sort of the Tampa, Bradenton area. There's a sideshow museum. I went down to that. I really wanted to interview a current sideshow performer. And I just couldn't find anybody. I mean, there aren't a lot of sideshows that are still around. And so finally, of all things, I see that the sideshow is coming to Tallahassee where I live. And oh, great. So I sign up for the VIP experience or to meet the performers and all this. And then I get a notice, no, show's canceled. Ah, goodness.
Mm.
So then I see they reschedule it. So same thing. I sign up again. I go down to where they're going to hold the show, and they oh, you're not here for that sideshow, are you? Yeah, that got canceled. So, but through all of that, I managed to, find one of the performers in the sideshow and get his contact information. And after several tries, I made contact. And his stage name is Short E Dangerously. And he is a half man. His body ends at his below his rib cage. And so he gets around on his hands and or on a skateboard mostly. And I asked him, I said, by this time I'd written the book and I was, getting ready to market and do some bookstore appearances. And I said, well, hey, would you consider letting me interview you as part of my book event? And I just want to ask you what your life is like. And he said, okay. And so we did two of them. We did one in Coral Gables and one in Savannah. And a very interesting guy. And I asked him, said, what is it like for you when you come into the room and everybody looks at you because you don't look like anybody else? And how, you go into Walmart, how does it feel? And he said, he's a very interesting, down-to-earth guy. And he goes, it depends on what kind of day I'm having. Honestly, if I go in, it's a good day, nothing bothers me, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm not, and somebody said, "Oh, so good to see you today," it's sort of like, well, why is it better to see me than anybody else? I'm just like anybody else. And so, but when I asked him to do this, he told me that really, displaying human oddities is sort of either outlawed or frowned upon. I don't know if it's actually against the law, but they just, and so sideshows, to the extent there are any, the people are performers. They're doing some performance. So on his website, the photo of him on the front of the website is him with a mask on, breathing fire. And I'm like, well, Shorty, we're in a bookstore, no breathing fire here. But he said, well, would you like me to perform? I'm like, well, what are you thinking? And he said, well, he goes, first he said, I can do some, push-ups. And he said, if that gets the crowd going, I can do a handstand. And if I really want to blow the roof off, I'll do a one-armed handstand. I'm like, oh my God. And then he says, that game with the cups where, you put the ball into the cup and you have to guess which one it is. He said, well, I do that, but I put a spike under one of the cups and then I slam my hand down on the other cups. And he said, if you Google magic tricks gone wrong, this is the first thing that comes up.
Hmm.
So we did that. My daughter, moved the cups around, and he didn't injure himself. But it was a very worthwhile. It sort of validated what I tried to get to in the novel about, well, what is it really like to be different, and particularly for somebody like him, that there's you or me, we can sort of go out in a strange city and nobody's going to pay us any attention. And it's sort of nice sometimes. For him, that's never an option. So it's just sort of I don't know, it's a unique thing that I thought was really, really fascinating.
It's interesting you kind of interviewed him and kind of had him collaborate with you after the book was written. How many times did you ask him a question and then secretly cross your fingers, being like, I hope I got this right?
Well, he was so great because I asked him, well, first I said, I want to be very, considerate of him. I said, is there anything that you don't want to talk about? You don't want me to ask you? And he said, well, I don't want to talk about religion or politics. I'm like, good with me.
Yep.
We
Nobody
could definitely
does.
steer clear of that. But no, he was no, he said it was interesting. So he had toured the world with sideshows for years. He said there's statues of me all over the world. And he said, but he got really sick. And he just said, I can't, just that whole lifestyle of constant travel, constant. And he said, I just can't do it anymore. So for the last 10 years or so, he's been a DJ at a strip club in Daytona Beach. And so my wife and I have dinner with him before our appearance down in Miami. And, we finished dinner. He says, well, can we stay a little longer? He said, this is the most normal conversation I've had in a long time. And I said, well, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed him. All things, I ran into him in an airport a few months ago. I'm going through the Charlotte airport, and there's Shorty. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So anyway, I'm very happy that that happened. It was really, really a cool guy. I'm glad I got a chance to meet him.
It's interesting because we've been fortunate to get to interview people from all walks of life and, people who live a lifestyle similar to Shorty, in different areas and traveling the world and from, whether born a certain way or taking up a profession that is unusual like that. And they're tends to be a certain theme, a really positive theme that we find from people we talk to, which seems to be just that we're not so different after all. Did you start to feel that at all?
Yeah, and he, it was so interesting. He said, I'm not an inspiration, I'm just a survivor. I'm a guy, and I thought that was really, a neat thing to say. And just, said, hey, when you really get down to it, same as everybody else. And so, yeah, that was a lot of it.
In the book, so the book opens up so dramatically. You literally throw the readers right into this scenario that is really pretty traumatic, but it builds very quickly and builds the layers of the characters are right out of the gate, pretty deep. And I think that's really compelling. And why did you think it was important to throw everybody in the deep end, literally?
Well, I've had people tell them that the beginning of the book is their worst nightmare, and it's just this. I don't think it's a big reveal. This book starts with so the boy Johnny, he's 6 or 7 years old, and this is rural backwoods North Florida in the 20s. And people have heard about him that he's got this weird thing, and then they have this illness, and other children die there, and they're convinced that he's responsible. So his mother cooks up this crazy idea with these sort of ex-circus friends to do a fake burial so it'll look like he died and they can sort of figure out what to do. And so the beginning of the book is he is in this coffin underground with this apparatus that's supposed to keep him alive. And so and I had debated a long time about sort of how to write the book. I mean, I ended up doing it this way intentionally, and people told me not to or to change it or whatnot. But there's parts of the book that are written from Johnny's point of view, and those are all in a third person. And then there's parts that are from other people's points of view that are first person. And so they're sort of, I wanted you to learn a lot about Johnny from what other people think of him and what other people project onto him that they want him to be. And as I mentioned, there's a little religious element to this. I mean, here's a boy with wings. I mean, was he an angel? What is this? And so if you think about that a little bit, there's a distance between you and God or Jesus or whatever it is. I mean, and so that was sort of, I thought, it made sense to do it that way. But I had people tell me, oh, you can't do this, you got to change this. And so I tried it different ways. I mean, I tried it with flip-flopping it. Johnny's all first person and they're third person, or everybody's the same one way or the other. And I ended up coming back to the way I did it because I thought it made sense in that
Yes.
context.
I liked it a lot. And it takes a second to get used to it, but that it's really cool because you don't see as often.
Yeah, again, I just wanted it to be, I mean, in my writing and in the festival and other things, we just try and be different, I mean, that's
Right.
against a little bit of this theme. I mean, it's okay to be like everybody else, but, you want to be different. You want to stand out. You want to do, your show. You want it to be different than, 18 other shows or whatever. So that was, I think part of it as well.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, I mean, start to finish, maybe 2.5 years. I mean, actually starting it to getting it published, probably like 4.5, and that's, the Gendarme was more like 7.5, so it's just the whole effort is, again, I write, I do it in a very slow fashion and I care a lot about the writing. So, in terms of, I mean, I've probably read that manuscript 25 times maybe,
Hmm.
and so I just, I mean, it's, people, publishers and editors and others have suggested to me for a long time, oh, you need to have a blog, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not witty enough to have a blog. I don't have enough material to have a blog. I have a blog now. And
Long
and the
story short,
first
yeah.
the first post is about writing advice because people ask me, I tell people the second most frequently asked thing, said thing to me, other than I've always wanted to run for public office, is well, I've got 6 chapters of a novel done. And so, response number one is, well, finish it. But the second is that, just to read and read a lot. And I have a goal of reading, 40 books a year, and I generally do it. And so it becomes so much second nature to me that, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I could diagram a sentence correctly, but I know what's right and what isn't just from looking at it. And so and I it does if and you guys probably read a lot too. I mean, if you I can't I can sort of handle bad writing, but only in limited doses. And so I've been asked to blurb some books, which I want to be generous to people. People have been generous to me, but there have been a few that I'm like, oh my God, this is like 10th grade writing level. It's like, so anyway, that's a long answer to your question on that.
Oh, that makes total sense.
And you mentioned the kind of shifting voices and shifting perspective of the book. Was that something that you kind of came to the as you started writing, going, this is what I want to do? Or was that something that you figured out as you were writing that having these other voices and perspectives in it will be a better way to kind of fill in the story and give kind of all sides to the characters?
Well, I thought that, I mean, I had general ideas for different characters I wanted to populate the book. And the idea of having it all from their points of view sort of came as I started writing it. Um, and, um, and people have asked me, oh, what was your favorite character and all this? Well, it's hard to say on that. But for me in writing, it's sort of, I've never acted or taken an acting class, but what I know of method acting is sort of like, I mean, I want to be in the head of the character. I want to inhabit this and sort of feel what they feel and know what they know. And so one of the characters that this is probably says something about me, is the killer, the guy, the one-armed guy. I wanted him to have some story, why does he do what he does, and so that was, and I could sort of identify this at a certain level. So anyway, that was, I felt like it worked. And then, obviously the whole sideshow freak show is rife with different characters, and so
Right.
that was I thought the character of Tiny Tot, the woman who, the dwarf woman who runs the sideshow, is an interesting character and somebody who's sort of been through a lot and keeps it all together. And is sort of really tough, and including tough on her daughter. And so that, that was sort of an interesting thing to a character to try and inhabit. The religious guy, the sword swallower, Zorak, same thing. I mean, here's a guy that's, sort of, and I'm sure you've met people I do, they're sort of, strangely religious. This is the last person I would think would be super religious in the class, so it's sort of that, persona that I wanted to, to bring out there.
In writing this book and doing it in this sort of first person for these characters, how did that affect your day since you said you write in the morning?
It was, that didn't phase me that much. The one thing that I thought a lot about, and so there's several African American characters, and as I said, the book is, there's somewhat about race. I mean, the boy Johnny ends up in this turpentine camp that's basically all black people, and who are kind to him. But so some of these chapters are from the point of view of an African American person. And so I'm, as the writer, I'm, struggling a little bit with use of language, with the N word. I mean, I've been around, African American people my whole life. I mean, I have a pretty good feel for, how words are used and that sort of thing, but I don't want it to be, you know, condescending, taken in the wrong way. So there's a very fine line in doing that. And the N word is a whole other thing. I went back and counted how many times. I felt like it had to be used some, but I didn't want to use it much. And so that was some of the hardest part, was just sort of thinking through, making sure this felt right in that regard.
Yeah, that's a third rail if there was one. Just
Yeah. And
writing a
it's
character who's not you, but then one that is so charged socially.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's the whole cultural appropriation thing out there too. And if you're a writer, I mean, part of your job as a writer is to, to inhabit, other people, male, female, black, white, I mean, but I understand that, certain people feel like, well, this is my story to tell, not yours necessarily. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I haven't, if there's been criticism of that, it hasn't made its way to me. There might be some out there, but I tried to be very thoughtful about that. I hope it came out that way.
for sure. I mean, well, I can't answer on behalf of the people of another race, or even the people that work at the, at the sideshow too. I mean, you took on a lot of different types of people.
Well, yeah, and and that was it was interesting that when Shorty, asked me, he said, "Well, hey, how did you do your research for the sideshows?" He says, "Because you nailed it, what it's like." Which is, if you write historical fiction, this is one of the highest compliments you can
It
receive.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, well, there's all these documentaries. I'd read all these books about it. I said, there's this guy, I read his memoir, Ward Hall, King of the Sideshow. And Shorty says, I knew it. He goes, I was in Ward Hall's show for 2 years. And so it was but there's a certain, I don't know, vernacular that people use in these types of shows. I mean, how hard that life is. I mean, they, put all this stuff, you've got to compress it back into where it goes, bring it to the next place, pull it all out again. It's like a puzzle. It's got to be done in sequence, and then weather, wipes them out, financially and otherwise. It's a huge, risky, difficult business. And so that, I thought that was all pretty fascinating.
Mhm. For sure.
And again, I mean, completely different, almost patois with some of it. And, it is another group of people that have kind of moved alongside society in many ways and not crossed over. So it must have been kind of, again, sort of nerve-wracking to even write in those voices because, again, you have people who are going to read this who might know more of that lifestyle or be of that lifestyle. What did Shorty make of the book?
He liked it.
Well, there you
And
go. That's
I wasn't sure he would actually read it, but he did.
Oil with Wings by Mark Mustian is available right now wherever you get your books. For more information, you can find him online, markmustian.com.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?